I have a YouTube video talking about the difference between equality and reciprocity. When we see injustices that happen, especially in the US, particularly with Black people and especially Black men and boys, this is not a coincidence. This is a cycle to see what will you do about it. Will you go back and plug back in, go about your day, forget about it in 3 months, clock back in, live a normal, European lifestyle and culture? Or will you start to begin to see reality for what it truly is and unplug from the matrix and truly take sovereignty into your own hands, which is not an easy task. My name is Asha Sekhmet, and I am a wife, Tantra practitioner, and founder of the Maji Community. We have a spiritual life system to become closer to the Creator without strict religious doctrine. We practice poly relationships based on heterosexual polyamory, and I'll talk about that more in this video. We practice tribalism, indigenous life system, and also sovereignty. And I wanted to share some really good news about what I have now, which is the Poly Shadow Workbook. Now, I want to share what makes the Mahi community different in terms of our style of polyamory dynamics and our life system. So, our life system is rooted in divinity to achieve God through the opposite sex. This means we practice heterosexual polyamory and heterosexual ethical non-monogamous relationship structures. And we utilize this to build community. I came into poly consciousness and polyamory through group economics and my Tantra trainings and initiations. And this is why we practice and utilize polyamory. I would say heterosexual divine polyamory so that we can achieve sovereignty through group economics. Now, we do not specialize in same sex relationship dynamics. There are dedicated advocates and leaders for people who identify with that type of lifestyle, which they have more fluid uh, polyamorous dynamics. This is very important that people recognize the difference. In the Poly Shadow Workbook, I really go into depth about the different types, all of the different types of poly dynamics, because it's important that you know what do you really align with. Because I'm telling you, I've seen this 10 times fold. People get into poly dynamics, they're just jumping into stuff and they have not done the initiations, the trainings to properly prepare for what it is that they truly align with on a soul level. So let me give an example. You may be a man connecting with a woman who practices polyamory and she's connected to another man who is attracted to both men and women. You may not be okay with connecting with a partner in a dynamic like that if you're a heterosexual man, and vice versa for a woman. I've had women come to me about this. They enter and connect with a couple, and the wife is demanding that she is her wife too. And the woman is like, I am heterosexual. I do not agree with this. That doesn't resonate with me. But she feels almost like she's forced to do it. It almost feels very pressured. I've had women come and tell me that. And we have to realize this. We have to do the deeper necessary work to understand what it is that we truly align with. Okay. We have free will. This means that there's going to be boundaries in communities, and you have to figure out what it is that you're more aligned with. So the Poly Shadow workbook is to go in very great detail about, the difference in relationship structure and giving you the tools to do the deep shadow work so that you can identify the poly dynamic that is best suited for you. Now, we approach polyamory and ethical non-monogamy from a different lens. Our lens is strictly community and sovereignty oriented. Now, I understand that some people approach it from individual desire and, it's just like based on feeling and connection. That's not how we operate our poly relationship dynamics. We have a spiritual life system, and if you follow it, you can transcend your humanness, which means that you can tap into the supernatural part of who you are, your supernatural DNA, and you can exist as God on earth. This does not mean that you're in your ego. This is the exact opposite, actually. This means that you are so deeply aligned with your soul, your straight channels with the Most High, and that strength and connection with Source is very strong. And we give you the tools to elevate your consciousness to connect with that God within. So we practice the 7 universal laws. We also, a lot of our life system comes out of the Kemetic tree of life. And there's many other aspects to it in terms of Tantra. And the reason that we center our heterosexual polyamory dynamics rooted in community and group economics is because we have some very powerful tools and spiritual guides. So it's not something to play with. It's something that we have to take serious. Even though when we come on a cause and when we come together in community, it's very fulfilling and it's very enriching for people who are truth seekers, right? For people who are trying to get out of like 3D, vibrations of what we're talking about, materialism, all the injustices that we can think of, racism, classism, ageism, all of these are a byproduct of a systemized construct, right, to keep us enslaved, right? We acknowledge that these things exist, right, and that these are injustice, right, that affects all mankind, especially when it is done to Black people and people of African descent, right? We know that because how you treat Black people is how you are tested by the Most High. And that is because for us as people of African descent, we are the elemental group that connects all of humanity to the Most High. So it's very important. Like we're not, oblivious, right, to injustices. We're saying that this is the solution. But when we talk about sovereignty, right, taking sovereignty into your own hands requires a spiritual, elevated level of consciousness and group togetherness. You see, most people in, especially the US society, and maybe in a lot of different Western areas, there's a program, a parasitic program of divide and conquer. So we focus on getting rid of this so that we can actually connect with the God within. You wouldn't be thinking so human-like and emotional when you bring up polydynamics, and that it can go both ways. Both men and women can be involved on a polyamorous path towards group economics and sovereignty. Men are human just like women are human, and both men and women have living, breathing souls that should be allowed, the ascension of their soul. So that's why in our community, we do not deny women the right to have multiple male partners or husbands if that's suited for her path. Of course, that's not going to be for every woman's path, to have multiple husbands, but at least partnership level is very important because a community involves men and women, right? So we need a brotherhood and sisterhood for us, right? Like I said, I understand that there's different communities. There's variations of communities that exist. And even the way that poly is practiced amongst the various forms of communities, even if they're religious or not, or all gender community, or a more fluid community that has polydynamics. It's important that you get the tools to do the inner work. This Poly Shadow workbook will give you that practical exercises that give you the deep spiritual work, and also the information that I was given in my 7-year initiation to help me reach the level that I am today, and continuing my initiations towards sovereignty and group collectivism. And the only way that you become sovereign is through poly relationships. So that's why it's important. When we talk about sovereignty, we're talking about an interdependent group of humans that rely on each other. That takes a tremendous amount of trust. And you also need the tools for relationship structures. So this is what we offer with the Poly Shadow workbook. This is my purpose. And I'm here to give you all of the tools so that you can make a conscious choice, right? So it can truly feel like free will, because we do have free will and we're in a shifting time. So this information in a Poly Shadow workbook is to help you have a greater sense of choice, but most importantly, finding out really who you are. I talk about this in the Poly Shadow workbook, all of the different scenarios and the things that you need to look out for so that you are prepared. The Maji Community Life System is a spiritual path that allows the harmonization between the divine feminine and biological women and divine masculine and biological men, working through the opposite sex to achieve divinity with God. Heterosexual polyamory and heterosexual non-monogamous relationship structures is what we utilize to build group economics and sovereignty. This is important because the first step, the first tier to sovereignty in building poly relationships and group economics is ego dissolution, in getting rid of programming that you've been taught living in a modern Western world, especially. Because we have to understand, just because you're born as a human does not mean that you are fully living in your humanness or that you have community skills. In this day and time, you're not fully being truthful and acknowledging the reality that you were born into if you cannot acknowledge this. This is why this time is so important, because people are being really ruled by their egos, right? There was a woman who was like, I don't understand why a woman would want to connect with a man who is married or has a wife already, right? And then when I tried to explain to her, it's because poly alone is not about individuals. It's about an alternative path towards sovereignty. It's not for us about casual flings and sexual appetite. That's not what it's about. That's not the end goal of poly. That's my purpose, is to bring the higher consciousness to understand what is it truly about from an indigenous perspective. And she's like, I know what poly is. You're not in a poly community. You're not sovereign. And you're saying that you know what this is. No, you don't. Because if you did, your reality would be different. You would be free, right? But a person may not be coming into truth of their reality and accepting that so that they can get to the next step, because their ego has them in a chokehold, right? They're enslaved by their ego. So this is why the Poly Shadow workbook is so important, because we give you the tools to have that ego dissolution and deprogramming. That divide and conquer parasitic Western mindset, it is so deep, and it really prevents from sustainable community from being built purposely, right? It's to keep people divided and entrapped and enslaved by their own ego. And you'll never get a community, and a person who is operating like that will never be able to work in community with people, right? So that's why it takes a certain level of humbleness and surrender to really get the tools that I am sharing here in the Poly Shadow Workbook. And then my husband has a book out right now called How to Get Healthy in 24 Hours, right? We're talking about immediate, small increment decisions that help you overcome your ego and get to a higher state of health consciousness, because this deals with health too, right? When we talk about spiritual development and development in relationship skills, that all deals with your health and consciousness. So my husband has a really good book for that, and it goes over shadow work and things that you can do as well, exercises, and that is on his website, mysupremewellbeing.com. The Poly Shadow Workbook is an ebook, so that's on my website, ashasekhmet.com. My husband's book, you can get a physical signed copy from him. Lastly, I just wanted to say that when we talk about community skills, you could have people that is in a polydynamic with, one man and maybe multiple women, and that seems to be going okay, but they could still be lacking community skills, because that's not the end goal of poly. The end goal of poly is to become sovereign. So that means that you're working with multiple poly families, right? And this is where people can get hung up, because I've had people come to our workshops who have been in polydynamics for more than 20 years, and none of those people are no longer connected or together, right? Because community skills require a longer term commitment into something greater than oneself, right? That's a different level of commitment and investment into, your future and the future generations to come of your community. So this is so much bigger than what people think it is, right? It doesn't just stop with one poly family, right? The real community skill test comes when you start getting more and more people together, right? And so we offer the higher consciousness with the tools to unlock that. We have the information and the exercises so that you can understand this part of it and you can align with that on a community level that is building, that's sustainable, right, towards sovereignty and longevity. So all of that is in the Poly Shadow Workbook. And feel free to get the workbook right now. It's available on my website as well, ashasekhmet.com. And I just wanted to share that it was a man who had been practicing poly for over 20 years, and it was dysfunctional, and he had not been successful at it. And when he started to come to our poly workshop and getting our information and education, and then he connected with a sister who went through sister wife trainings with us and came to our workshops on that. That was his first time experiencing a functional poly dynamic where two of the women are working together and they're building together, in him as well. That was his first time where it's functional, it's peaceful, and everyone is playing their roles. It doesn't mean that conflict doesn't happen. It just means that they're continuing on towards a path. They're all at a certain development that they can come together and work together in group economics and shared responsibility towards a common goal in community building, right? So this is what I mean, right? And that's because what we have, you cannot get anywhere else, right? This education is offered globally, right? And then our community members and people who feel like they resonate with a community like this, right? If you feel like you want to understand more or feel called to understand more of heterosexual, ethical, non-monogamy, and you also want a spiritual life system, right? We're not with the foolery, right? It's not about casual flings. We're not ego driven. It's really about connecting with source and strengthening that relationship so that you're existing as God on earth. We have the tools for that you cannot get anywhere else. And I humbly share this because I see the results in real time, right? This is my life purpose, and it's building towards a sovereign community for the new earth, right? And it starts with learning poly relationships. Okay, so I just wanted to share this with you all, and it really just takes that first step with just really seeing the truth for what it is, which is this construct in your enslavement and confinement of what you were born into, and understanding that this is an alternative path so that you can actually become free on a soul level. But the first step to that is humbleness. You have to, understand, like in the modern Western world, for whatever reason, they really fuel off the fact that people have low self-esteem, right? And people who have low self-esteem, what do they want to do? They always want to make it seem like they know more, they know things, they understand things, and they have it all together, right? And there's not that vulnerability there, right? I'm still learning things every single day with entrepreneurship and sovereignty, right? It's okay to not know things, right? That's okay. And so this is very important, because when you are in your ego about relationships and family, that's very destructive, right? Because karmic lessons and, your fulfillment that comes from community, your ego will continue to sabotage that. So this is what we offer here with the Maji community. We will be having a group call. This is open to everyone who wants to learn more about the Poly Shuttle workbook and what this is really about. This is going to be Wednesday, June 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is in our school private community. This is the Maji Community Mystery School. You can look at that on your web browser or the app, and you can request to join the group, and then you can join the call to hear what this workbook is all about and what type of results that you will get after reading the book and doing the exercises and building community and coming and receiving the education. All right. So I just wanted to share this with you all. I really look forward to seeing you all on the call. The call is free to everyone who feel like this resonates with you, this lifestyle resonates with you, and you're interested in learning more and going deeper to access those tools to inner healing, tapping into your inner sovereignty, and start developing your relationships consciously. Right? All right. So like this video, subscribe to my channel. Let me know any comments that you have, any questions in the comment section. I also have the link in the description here. If you want to book a one-on-one with me, you can do so at ashasekhmet.com. And that will be a spiritual consultation. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. And I will see you all June 24th.